Okay, in question 2, for each parabola, we want to find these three things here. We want to find the vertex. We want to find the absolute value of C, which is the distance between the vertex and focus, and the direction in which it opens. So either up, down, left, or right. So up will go this way, down that way, open left this way, open right that way. So let's reconsider the general forms of a parabola. So we have the first kind, which is y minus k equals a x minus h squared. These are what I call y graphs, and they either go this way where a is positive or open down when a is negative. And the other kind of graph is x minus h equals a y minus k squared. So in this case, they open left or right. So when a is positive, it will open to the right. When a is negative, it will open to the left. And the other important thing to note is a equals 1 on 4c, where a is this value here, that's a, and c is your distance between the vertex and focus, that is equal to c there. So in the first question, A, we will try to rewrite it into one of these two forms. And we note that we've got x squared here. So it's looking like form number 1, and we have y on the left side. So let's just rewrite that as y minus 0 equals a quarter x minus 0 squared. Okay, so then we can see now that the vertex, which is hk, will be equal to 0, 0, using our first form up there. So the vertex is 0, 0. And now we want C, and C will be calculated as follows. The absolute value of C, because we actually want a distance, so we want the absolute value of C. So if C turns out to be negative, we just take the absolute value of that. So the formula is A is 1 on 4C. In this case, we can see that A is equal to a quarter. So a quarter equals 1 on 4C. So this implies that C is equal to 1. So that's the distance between the vertex and focus. We'll highlight that as well. And lastly, we want to find the direction which it opens up, down, left or right. So this is going to open up, because the A value, which is a quarter, is positive. And it's of the first form here, form number 1. So the graph is going to be opening upwards. Similarly, we can do the same for question B. But notice how now we have x on the left side and we have a y squared. So it's looking like we have form 2 here, where we have x and then we have a y squared in here. So we'll use this form number 2. So let's change that to x minus 0, which is equal to x, equals negative 1/8 y minus 0 all squared. So these are exactly the same. I haven't changed anything. I've just put 0, 0 in to remind us that the vertex, which is hk, is equal to 0, 0, the origin. So that would be our vertex, 0, 0. And C, let's calculate C. So let's write our formula first, which A is 1 on 4c. In this case, we see a is negative 1/8, 1 on 4c. So this implies that c equals -2. But as we want a distance, we take the absolute value of c, so we'll get 2 for the distance between the vertex and the focus. And does it open up or down, left or right? So as we're in form 2, and notice that a here is negative, so we're going to be opening to the left, to the negative direction. Okay, so in question C, we have the same kind of problem. Let's rewrite this as y minus 0 equals negative x plus 1 squared. So let's compare that to this form. Y minus k equals a x minus h squared. So we can see here that k would be 0, but you need to be careful with the h, because our formula specifies x minus h, but you're given x plus 1. So in this case, the vertex is going to be h, which will be -1, and k, which will be 0. So that's going to be our vertex. Now we want to find c. And we know that a equals 1 on 4c. A in this case is -1. So -1 equals 1 on 4c. So c is going to be -1/4. And we want the absolute value of that. So you'll get 1/4 for the distance between the focus and vertex. And next, we want to know whether this opens up or down. We know that the form is a Y kind of graph, so the first kind of graph. So it's going to open downwards. So it's going to be going down in this direction because A is negative for this kind of graph. In question D, it looks like we have a graph of the second form where we've got x equals y minus 5 all squared. So let's rewrite this as x minus 0 equals y minus 5 all squared, which tells us that the vertex is going to be 0, 5. And A is 1 on 4c. A in the question is 1. So 1 equals 1 on 4c. So again, in this case, c will be 1/4, the distance between the vertex and the focus. And this graph is going to open to the right. So we have an X-style graph, and A here is positive. So it will be opening to the right. In the last two questions, E and F, for question E, we've got x plus 2 equals 1/4 y plus 2 squared. So let's just rewrite that as x minus -2 equals 1/4 y minus -2. I did that so we can match our general form. And our general form was x minus h equals a, y minus k all squared. So we can see now that hk, our vertex, is going to be equal to -2, -2. So that would be our vertex. And Let's calculate C. So A is 1 on 4C. In this case, A is a quarter, equals 1 on 4C. So this implies that C will be equal to 1. And it's already positive, so we can leave it like that. That's your distance between the vertex and the focus. And the shape of our graph, we have a second form of the equation, so it's an X graph. And A here is positive, so it's going to open to the right. So the graph will be opening in that direction. In question F, it looks like we have an equation of the first form. And to remind you, that would be y minus k equals a, x minus h squared. So we can match that up almost perfectly, and we'll get our vertex, which is hk. So the vertex would be h, which is 5, and the k value is 3. So that's our vertex. And A is 1 on 4C. A is given as negative 1 on 25 equals 1 on 4C. So that tells us that C will be, by cross multiplication, C will be negative 25 on 4. And as we want the absolute value, we'll get 25 on 4 for C. And this graph is going to open downwards because we have a Y-style graph. And the A value, as you can see here, is negative. So this graph is going to open downwards. So that being said, when you know how to do these steps, the next step will be graphing the parabolas using the directrix, focus, and the vertex.